Welcome to the RC Aerobatics podcast. I'm your host, Rich Whitlow. This episode, we get to speak with Kurt Koelling, the newest IMAC National Champion and Bennett Cup winner. Kurt is an aerobatics pilot who lives in Ohio. He competes in IMAC Unlimited Class and has flown some F3A pattern. Kurt has competed in many high-profile competitions, including the Don Lowe Masters, Clover Creek, and the Tucson Aerobatic Shootout. We talk about his history, his relationship as a caller, and his practice routines and what he has going on now. Thanks for listening to the show. Please like and subscribe. Hey, Kurt, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you. To kind of get everybody familiar with you, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and where you grew up?
Yeah, so I actually grew up mainly as a young child in northern New Mexico, and then I went to high school and college, undergraduate school in Missouri, St. Louis area, and then actually moved further east since then. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, very good. So where are you living now?
So now I'm basically in the Columbus, Ohio, suburbs of Columbus, Ohio, and I'm here with my wife, Heather, and a 16-year-old son, Caden.
Oh, terrific. Terrific. Yeah, I was a couple of years in Cincinnati, so it's a nice area. Oh, good deal. So what do you do for a living?
Well, I...
Trick question.
For 30 years, I have been a professor at Ohio State University teaching chemical engineering courses, and my expertise and research areas have been in the polymers and also fluid mechanics, fluid dynamics areas, which both areas I've been able to use to some advantage in the RC industry as well. So.
Oh, terrific. Well, very good.
But I guess I should also mention that as of 45 days ago, I actually retired from Ohio State. I do have a emeritus faculty position, and I still carry on some research, but I don't have any teaching responsibilities, and so I've got a lot more free time to fly RC planes.
Well, congratulations. That's great. That's great. Well, very good. So, with all that technology, I guess, or education, I guess the RC hobby is kind of an interesting world. How did you get into that?
Yeah, so I guess two aspects of how I got into this. One, I grew up always loving planes, and the love came from my father, who flew full-scale airplanes and owned full-scale airplanes, and I flew a lot as a young child, starting probably at the age of 5. I was in the cockpit flying with him and did a lot of flying myself from like age 5 to 15. So I was just always around airplanes and learned a lot about them through that. And then I got into RC cars, actually, though, because we just simply didn't have the money, as our family just didn't have the money to afford RC airplanes at the time. And so cars were a lot cheaper, and it still teaches you some skills about, like, if the car's coming at you, right is left and left is right, which is no different than an airplane, right? So
yeah, no doubt.
But it wasn't actually until I think it was 1999. I was almost 30 years old that I got into flying RC planes, and that's because my dad had retired and picked up the hobby because he wasn't flying full scale anymore, but he still had an interest in airplanes, and so he actually taught me to fly RC airplanes in 1999, and I just became totally hooked on it. I the first few years, I think I was at the flying field almost every night after work and definitely every Saturday and Sunday. It was just nonstop RC flying, trying to push the envelope, and I crashed a lot of planes doing that the first few years. So.
I can imagine. I can imagine. And what type of flying did you do? Was it just kind of freestyle or sport flying, or?
The first year was just goofing around, trying to learn how to do knife edge flight and snap rolls and spins and things like that, just for fun. And then, actually, I think near the end of my first year of flying, or maybe the very beginning of the second year, I got. Actually, a guy at our club decided to hold a little club aerobatic contest, and he made it really simple by having it was actually the IMAC basic sequence, but you just did one maneuver at a time. So you go up, do one maneuver, and then you could fly around and get reset, and then you could do the next maneuver. So it made it more accessible for people that couldn't fly, in the box in a sequence, which is a lot harder than just flying a single maneuver.
Right. And
that got me hooked. And so I went over to, I think it was the spring of 2000, I went over to the Dayton Air Force Museum, which is an awesome place to see planes, but also they've got full-scale runways that are closed now that are for RC flying. And so we had a judging school there, and that was taught by Mark Jorgensen, who was the president of IMAC at the time. And then we had several unlimited pilots that came over and instructed us on how to fly out on the runway. So that once I did that, I pretty much devoted all my time to just flying precision aerobatics and scale aerobatics. So.
And what kind of plane were you flying back then when you just started?
I flew the heck out of a Hangar 9 Cap 232. It was the blue and white art that was like a 78 inch or something like that with a Loki 2.1 two-stroke on it, and I had well over 1,000 flights on that plane. I just flew it and flew it and flew it. That in 2000, I think it was. So, and I competed in basic class in 2000 doing that.
Oh, okay. Well, very good. And how quickly did you move up in the classes?
So I moved up pretty quick. The 2001, I moved to sportsman class, and I went to the first contest of the year, which was over in Terre Haute, Indiana, and I was being judged by. I should also say I'd moved up to a new airplane at that time. I'd bought a plane, a AeroWorks Edge 540T kit that had been built by Don McClellan out of Canada, and he was probably one of the lightest builders out there, and he was also really into quiet planes, and so he built his own exhaust for it, and he had flown it the year before and then sold it to me to fly in 2001. And so I had a really sweet plane to fly. It flew way better than the Hangar 9 Cap did. And that had, I think, a BME 100 on it. And with a 3-bladed prop, it was super quiet. And I flew in this first contest, and Mike McConville, who at that time was flying in the Tournament of Champions and designing planes for Hangar 9 and for Midwest as well earlier. He said to me, "Kurt, you need to go to the national championships this summer." And I hadn't even ever thought of doing that, but I went to the nationals, signed up for it, and it was really awesome. I think we had close to 100 pilots at the Nationals that year in 2001, and there were, I think it's 33 pilots in sportsman class. So we had a heck of a contest, and I think 10 of us made the finals, and it ended up coming down in the end to myself and David Moser, and I ended up winning, and David finished second at the 2001 Nationals in sportsman class, and
Oh, that's awesome.
that was a lot of fun, and
No doubt.
that may be the largest sportsman class that's ever been at the Nationals. So.
Wow, that's incredible. And the fact that you flew against David, that's
the
start of a trend, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's amazing. So, out of curiosity, where are you? I know you've been several Nats in a row now. Did you go?
So 2001
every year
was
after
my
that?
first, and I've gone to every single one since. So I've been to all. Let's see. I guess there's been 21 of them because we missed. There's COVID.
We missed 1 year.
Cost us 2020, but I've been to every single one since then, and made the finals in every single one, and I've done pretty well at them as well.
That's amazing. That's amazing, and congratulations, if everybody doesn't know who's listening to this, for winning this year's Nats and for being back on the Bennett Cup. That's terrific.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah,
that's good stuff. Let me ask you another thing. I asked Lou this. How nice is it to have a partner and caller to go with you to the Nats?
Yeah, it's incredible. I've always been lucky to have some special people to help me out over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So I started flying RC IMAC competitions before Lou. So before that, at big contests, Will Berninger and Ken McGuire and Mike Hubbard all flew with me back then, and they've called for me at some really big contests over the years. But about 2000, maybe 5 or 6, Lou and I got hooked up flying and calling for each other, and I think Lou has called for me at almost every single contest I've flown at around the country since then. And what it really comes, and he's helped me tremendously, but really it comes down to the preparation going into a contest, and we get to fly with each other. We fly at the same field, and Lou Matustik and I, pretty much our goal is every time we go out to the field is to fly unknowns and fly as many unknowns as we possibly can. And I typically don't even look at unknowns. I'm not going to say at a contest I don't, but when we're practicing, right, I do not look at unknowns. It's just cold called from Lou, and he has to tell me everything because I don't even know what the figures are or anything, and we just fly it. And so I'm relying 100% on him, and that makes me better, and it makes him better as a caller. And of course, I do the same thing for him as well. And we've become we just have a language we can speak with one another where we know exactly what each other is kind of thinking before we even do it, and it's been so much fun to have somebody that you can be close friends with, and share a fun hobby like this.
Right, absolutely. Well, that's incredible, and I see you guys every year together and calling together, and you can really tell that's kind of a special deal, and being able to communicate sometimes even relatively silently to each other when you're flying is nice. Yeah, that's nice. So I guess that kind of explains the practice regimens. Is there how much practice you guys try to do, say before Nats or for a big contest? Is it every day? Is it a couple times a week, or what are you looking at?
Yeah, so I will say that maybe the first 15 years of my flying career in the IMAC, I flew almost every day. Let's say the month going into the Nats, I'd fly every day unless it was raining. I'd be at the field and get in like usually 3 or 4 flights and each day. So I would say 70% of that is unknowns, maybe 70 or 80%. Very little practice of the known. I mean, you fly the unknowns or the known so many times at contests, if you go to lots of contests, which I do. So you get pretty proficient at that. But the big difference maker is who can fly the unknowns. All of us can end up flying the knowns pretty well after you've done it hundreds of times. And so it's, the unknowns is what makes the big difference, even though it only counts for 20% of your score. But
yeah, but still, that's usually the 20% that counts.
Exactly.
For sure.
Exactly.
For sure. So, what was your progression of airplanes over the years after the cap?
Yeah, so I went from that quarter scale cap to the 33% Aeroworks Edge 540T. The next year, 2002, I flew a Cardin aircraft Edge 540T, 40%. And that was also built by Don McClellan. And then I switched over to the Cardin Aircraft Extra series, and that went from the 330 to the 260, and then the 300s of different sizes from Cardin. And I worked very closely with Cardin for many years, and Dennis was great to work with. He was willing to listen to some of my suggestions, and I first started dabbling in designing aircraft when I modified. He had a 43% Cardin Aircraft Extra 300 that was built around the DA 200. And I flew that for a year, and I flew it at the shootout, and it was a pretty draggy plane, and I really wanted something that wasn't quite that draggy, so I designed some new airfoils, and Dennis was willing to cut those for me, both wings and rudder and horizontal and vertical stabs, all different on that plane. And he let me try that out, just a one-off on my own. And I think I flew that in maybe 2007 or 2008. And then I decided to design a completely new plane with Cardin Aircraft, and that was the Cardin Aircraft Extra 300 Pro. And I flew the Pro for probably 6 or 7 years, and I really enjoyed that plane. That was a very low drag airplane that worked well with really well with a 3-bladed prop and a DA 200. Or a 150, or a 170. There's lots of options to utilize that plane well. And so that was my first full plane that I just, from the ground up, I designed everything on it. And Dennis, of course, worked on some of the structure around, his methods, and we used the same build structure, but methods, but everything, the airfoils and everything, I designed all those and sent those to Dennis. So that was a fun project. And then moved on. So the last 4 or 5 years, I've been flying. Started a new company with Kamikaze, that's Cam Aero, and designed a little bit bigger plane that's got more side area and flies better on knife edge. It requires less rudder and is easier to fly slow through rolls, whereas the Cardin Pro was had to be flown pretty quickly to have enough lift on knife edge to fly nice clean rolls. So so that was that project was really, I did everything on that in terms of design, going all the way down to every CNC code. I wrote everything myself to cut the cowl, the canopy, all the fiberglass parts, and wrote the code to do the 4-axis CNC machining of all the airfoils and fuselage, belly pan, and turtle deck, and so forth. So that was a major undertaking, and I learned a lot through that.
Yeah.
And I got to use a lot of my background in fluid mechanics and using computational fluid dynamics simulation codes to learn some things about airfoil design and lift on fuselages and things like that.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very neat. Let me ask you something. Going from, because I hear this all the time, people will pick up an edge and say, "Oh, don't fly IMAC with an edge. You can't fly IMAC with an edge." And you said you competed with that for a while.
Sure.
What do you feel like that was flying an edge, and then what are the advantages of moving to an extra design?
Right. I mean, I flew the edge in sportsman and advanced class, and was able to fly it very competitively against other planes. It's got different stall characteristics. It's hard to get it to stall. It's so stable, but that's more just learning how to fly, or how much elevator to give it, how much rudder to give it to enter a spin and things like that to make it look right to the judges. And there's no reason it can't fly well. I mean, the straight leading edge, sometimes you'll see a little bit of wobble, kind of side to side, not really locking in yaw. So maybe it takes a little more skill in terms of rudder to try to make it fly, really fly well. But really, we're just talking very small percentage differences. That most people, I don't think, would probably have the skills to even perceive the differences. I do think there's an advantage, though, when you, with at least the nice thing about the Extra 300, the reason that is a good platform, and the one I've stuck with for both the Cardin Pro and the Cam Aero planes, is that the Extra 300 was the longest plane relative to wingspan of any full-scale plane that was ever built. All the other Extra 300s, the LX and the 330 and the 260 had shorter fuselages relative to the wingspan. So just like, you look at pattern planes. Pattern planes, they long track better when they're long and they have short wingspans. So that's been my main reason for choosing that platform for designing around.
Yeah, I was curious to ask you that because they told me that when I got in. Guess it was 2014 or 15. I had an Edge. It was actually just 3D Hobbies Edge. It was electric. And it was two things they told me. Oh, you can't fly IMAC electric and you can't fly an Edge. I said, oh, yeah? It's what I got. So that's what I'm going to fly.
And it worked, right?
It did. I actually did very well in sportsman and basic with that plane until I graduated to a little bit bigger plane. So
I think a lot of it is just learning your plane. I've always been a big advocate of not jumping around from plane to plane constantly, and just learn whatever plane you've got, and you can make it fly really well if you learn its characteristics. So and if you're willing to, obviously you can always do trim work on planes to help them dial them in even closer, and that does take time. But once again, sticking with the same plane makes a lot of sense, because it's better to invest more time and effort into dialing one plane in as opposed to just skipping around from one plane to the next and never really dialing any of them in. So.
Right. Yeah. There's a few guys down here in the South Central that every year it's a new plane. It's like, oh, you may get get it flying a little better if you spend a little time, but
right.
Well, good deal. So, the other big contests other than that, so you said Tucson. What other contests that you've enjoyed that gone to?
Yeah, I've been blessed to since about 2003, which is the first year I flew unlimited. I've pretty much been invited to every major contest that's been out there. So the first one that came about was the Don Lowe Masters World Aerobatic Championships, and that I flew in 3 times, I think, the last 3 times it was held. And that was down at Triple Tree Aerodrome.
Was that scale planes?
It was IMAC. It was scale aerobatics.
It was IMAC, okay.
Yep.
Very good.
Although the pilots that were invited to that were, I would say, 50% pattern pilots and 50% IMAC pilots. But they all were. Everybody was flying scale aerobatic planes. It was basically the Tournament of Champion pilots that were. I flew against Kiki Somenzini and Don Cesar. And some pilots from over in Europe that came over to that, and competition was awesome. The sequences did not follow IMAC Arresti rules. So, like for instance, we did have things like rolling loops and like 3 or 4 different rolling elements on a single line.
Oh, wow.
So it was a mixture somewhere between pattern sequences and IMAC sequences, I guess I would say. So, and it was also, that contest was similar to the Tournament of Champions in the sense that you had to fly the same plane for both precision and freestyle, and freestyle was required. I mean, it was... I can't remember, 20% or something of your final score. So, probably my biggest crash ever. And the one, if you look up online, I think you can YouTube. You can find look up my name flying freestyle at the Don Lowe Masters, and I've got a knife edge pass, which was supposed to be down the runway. But it was down the runway on the very back edge near the trees, and I shredded a Cardin Extra 260 with a DA 150. About parts of it were spread out over like 200 yards of length.
Holy cow.
The thing that made it the furthest were 2 lithium-ion battery packs, and they made it the furthest, but... I had stabs and wings stuck up in the trees for a couple hundred yards down that thing, and the engine just kept running as it went.
Holy cow.
Shredded, cutting down tree limbs and everything along the way. So, so that was a great contest to go to, and really got me flying against some of the best competition around the world. And then the Tucson Shootout, obviously, I've been to all of those contests since 2005. There's probably been at least 10 shootouts since then. And then the Clover Creek Invitational that John Schroeder put on, I went to all of those contests as well. And those were one of the bigger money events that was around at the time. And so that was an awesome contest. Once again, one that had both a freestyle and a precision component that was required. So that was fun. And I've also flown at the Extreme Flight Championships as well. So the XFC has been a a fun event. I haven't done that as much because I prefer precision more than freestyle, but I like doing I like both.
Yeah.
But I like contests that have a precision component to them. So.
Oh, very good. Very good. And I haven't been to the XSC. I assume that's all freestyle.
That is 100% freestyle, yes.
Okay. Well, very good. Do you fly any of the other aerobatic disciplines?
Yeah, so I've done some pattern, not very much, but I've dabbled in that some, and then I do pylon racing, which is probably the biggest adrenaline rush of any type of RC flying I've done. It's a blast, but I've only really done that more at the local club level. I haven't competed at the nationals or anything like that. But it's fun. Anywhere I get a chance to do some pylon racing, it's definitely a blast. And,
absolutely. And now it's so easy to get into. We got some guys on our club. We're building foam planes with balsa wings and cheap electric motors, and for less than $50, we're flying little pylon, pretty fast little planes too.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
a lot of fun.
And so those have probably been the main disciplines in as far as RC. Before I did RC, I did actually fly some control line precision aerobatics, and also did some rat racing with small. I mean, it's fun to race control line planes against each other, because it just becomes a big mess of wires getting tangled up and having to jump above and below people to get around, and
right.
It's a fun thing to do, but I have not. I did that in the late '90s quite a bit, and then once I got into RC, it just seemed like so much more fun than doing the control line. But
I gotcha. Well, what's the your competition schedule look like this year? Where are you planning on going?
Yeah, so just getting back from the Nationals a couple weeks ago, and so now I'll go to a couple more local contests in the North Central region, in Ohio and Indiana and Michigan, and then the big contest I'm really preparing for, and I just started preparing for that. Actually, last week I started flying the sequences. It's the Tucson Shootout. There are 3 different known sequences for the invitational class. Invitational known A, B, and C, and each one of them has a K factor over 550. So they are really challenging sequences, and it's a lot of fun. Definitely will not be bored for the next few months practicing those known sequences. So,
I bet.
So Lou and I will be out. In fact, we're going out in a couple days to go to a different field that's got more space, because the Tucson Shootout sequences are huge. They are not designed for small flying fields. So we're going to a different field to try to fly those. So.
Yeah, when you got a whole big desert to fly in,
exactly.
Space isn't quite an issue.
Exactly.
Oh, good deal. So when it comes to awards and accolades, what kind of awards have you won, and which ones are you specifically proud of, and your favorites?
Yeah. Well, it probably has to be the Nationals, just in the sense that I have. So I started in 2001, and I won the Sportsman National Championship, and then since that time, I have now won. I think it's 8 Unlimited National Championships.
Wow.
Starting back in 2007 was my first Unlimited National Championship, and I think I won straight 2010 through 2015, so 6 years straight I won. And then I won again this year in 2022. And then also along the way, I've been blessed to fly at the Nationals in a way that I guess I haven't made many mistakes, and it's allowed me to win the Bennett Cup, which is flying closest to precision to perfection in any class at the Nationals. And I've won the Bennett Cup 9 times now. From 2007 was the first time, and now I just won it again in 2022. So I've got my name on the Bennett Cup, which is in the AMA Museum. It's now on there 9 times, and that's probably my biggest accomplishment, to be able to do that. It's really hard to win that, especially against pilots in like sportsmen and intermediate that are flying easier sequences that have less chances for downgrades. And so it's actually surprising that Unlimited has dominated winning the Bennett Cup. Not just me, but David Moser has won it quite a few times, and Mark Leesburg back in the early 2000s won it flying Unlimited. It's not easy to do it when you're flying the most difficult sequences that have the most possible downgrades on them. So
no doubt.
That's definitely my biggest accomplishment, I would say. And then I guess the other one I'd have to put up with that is being winning the first ever IMAC World Championship event in 2014, and also being the team captain for the USA team, and also being a member of the winning USA first place team award as well, not just the individual award. So it was great to have that camaraderie as a team, which you don't get so much in IMAC. It's everybody's kind of for themselves, right? But the World Championship event is a chance to come together and really try to support one another even more to fly at their very best. So
that certainly was a spectacular event for sure.
Yeah, and looking forward, I hope we'll have another Worlds event in the not too distant future. So
yeah, me too. Maybe we'll travel somewhere. We'll see.
That would be awesome.
No doubt. So who are your current sponsors?
So currently, people I need to thank are definitely Futaba's been with me for almost 20 years now, and has supported me heavily, as well as Desert Aircraft. And then as far as airplane support, airframe support, Cardin Aircraft for many years, and now Cam Aero has been there to help me in every possible way. I couldn't have done it without them. And I've also had support from Fromco, Scale Avionics, and Smartfly, and J&J Tailwheels. They've all been great sponsors for me and have helped me out along the way. So, it's certainly made my wife a lot happier when I haven't had to pay full price for items for the last 22 years, because I've used a lot of equipment over those years. When you practice, multiple times a week, every week of the whole year, you're going to use up some equipment. So
yeah, you think things wear out, huh?
Exactly.
Oh, very good. Well, if people want to contact you, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, sir. My email address is kurtkoelling@gmail.com. I'm on the IMAC forums. You can reach me through that. I've always been available on Flying Giants as well. I've been active. I'm professor on there. And I'm not a big social media person in terms of Facebook and things like that, but I'm certainly happy to help anybody out if they've got questions about things they're working on. Or it's great to get back to the hobby. So
absolutely, it's certainly been a great hobby for sure.
Yeah, it's a great way to make friends. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, all over the world too, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for taking your time, Kurt. I really appreciate it. It's been such a great conversation, and I always love watching you fly, and it's certainly inspiration, and it's great to see a guy with a little gray hair, competing with everybody else. You're my hero, man.
There's lots of talented young kids, but with some perseverance and practice, even old guys can fly pretty well. So
That's right. Well, very good. We'll take care, and we'll see you at the next contest, man.
Thanks, Rich. Take care. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. A very special thanks to my good friend John Papa Gros, who wrote the song Deep in the Mud that is used as the show bumper music. Check him out on his website, www.johnpapagros.com. A link is in the show notes. See you at the next episode.